Cartoon Network has been home to some of the most wildly creative and outrageous cartoons to ever come across our television screens, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. Remember the zaniness of Cow and Chicken? Or perhaps you preferred the spooky hilarity that was The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy? There were a lot of options when you wanted to get crazy. I remember at times being almost overwhelmed by the hours straight of characters running through walls, screaming, smashing each other with makeshift weapons. Now don't get me wrong, I loved it, but sometimes I would appreciate a break with a more calming show. Enter Mike, Lou, and Og, a humble little cartoon that ran from November of 1999 to May 2001. It came and went as so many others do, overshadowed by many of the other now classic shows of the time. But it still sticks out in my memory for its laid-back pace and focus on relatable fish-out-of-water situations, generally zagging while the other shows zigged into more extreme territories. So what was it that made this lazy beach show stand out among a landscape of juggernauts? For that answer, let's check out what made Mike, Lou, and Og the mellowest Cartoon Network show ever. Like many shows in the mid to late 90s on Cartoon Network, Mike, Lou, and Og first appeared on Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon Show, also known as The Cartoon Show, where the network would broadcast a group of animated shorts that would potentially be picked up as full series. And can I say how underrated this program was? I never fully realized how many great shows got their starts there. Stop me when you're unimpressed. The Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, Codename Kids Next Door, Samurai Jack are just a few that premiered during this program. And I could talk about the legacy that the What a Cartoon Show had all on its own, and maybe someday I will. But Mike, Lou, and Og debuted on the world premiere Toons, a different iteration of What a Cartoon, and that year its series run would begin. The show was created by Charles Swenson, who previously worked on Rugrats as a producer and An American Tail, Fievel Goes West, as a writer. The show was split into two roughly 11-minute segments in a half-hour time slot and lasted 2 seasons for a total of 26 episodes. And if there's one thing this show can boast, it's voice talent. The list of iconic characters behind just the initial 3 main cast is impressive all on its own. Our main character, Mike, is voiced by Nika Futterman, who has most famously voiced Asajj Ventress in the Star Wars Clone Wars TV series and Styx the Badger in the Sonic Boom show and games. She also voiced Olga, Helga's older sister in Hey Arnold, and was the backup singer in the Offspring song Pretty Fly for a White Guy, providing the backup vocals where she sang Give It To Me Baby. That's pretty cool. Next up is Lou, voiced by none other than Nancy Cartwright, whose name should immediately bring the image of Bart Simpson into your mind, among various other Simpsons characters. She's also voiced Chucky Finster in later seasons of the Rugrats, and in Rugrats, All Grown Up, and has some minor voices in Goof Troop and Animaniacs. Lastly, Og is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who voiced Perry the Platypus in Phineas and Ferb, Klaus in American Dad, and Number 4 in Codename Kids Next Door, and Daffy and Taz in Space Jam, and was the announcer and voice of Olmec in Nickelodeon's Legends of the Hidden Temple. And I have to give a special mention to Kath Soucie, who plays Og's mother, and has also voiced Lola Bunny, Fifi LaFume in Tiny Toon Adventures, Dexter's mom in Dexter's Laboratory, Phil and Lil in Rugrats, and one of my favorites, Princess Sally in Sonic the Hedgehog. So what's the show actually like? If you want to get a good first impression, I'd suggest listening to the theme song. It's so hummable and perfectly encapsulates that island feeling. If this video inspires you to do one thing, let it be to listen to the theme song. It's an earworm. Our first look at the show comes in the form of the pilot episode, We immediately get to know these characters. Mike is a foreign exchange student from New York, displeased at times with the slow pace of island life. Lou, the bratty, self-proclaimed princess of the island, is complaining about how hot out it is. And Og, the brainy boy genius, wants to solve their problems using his smarts. And all three of them are joined by Lou's pet turtle, Lancelot. Mike says she wants to go to the beach and wishes they had a car. When they ask what a car is, she describes one to them, and Og builds one out of wood. But Lou says that's too plain for her. She wants a car for her royal self. So Og builds her one too, and it's cool. It reminds me of Princess Jean's car in MotorToon Grand Prix 2. I know that's a pretty deep pull for a video game, but bear with me. And the funniest part is, Mike and Og drive away in their car, and Lou has nobody to drive her, and she can't drive herself because she's too much of a princess. So she gets her turtle Lancelot to drive her. And it doesn't go well. He's a turtle, and he's never driven before. So as she crashes into the ocean, Mike and Og drive off into the sunset. What I appreciate though, is throughout the series, Lou isn't a constant lightning rod throughout the entirety of the show. I never liked it when one character always gets the brunt of abuse. Like my favorite parts in Tom and Jerry were the beginnings when Tom actually gets a few hits in, so I like that the mishaps are evenly distributed for the most part. A majority of episodes revolve around Mike, or one of the Islanders, introducing a concept from their world to the other. And the comedy comes from the ideas getting lost in translation. In typical comedic fashion, of course, nothing is ever explained clearly enough or taken very clearly. It reminds me a lot of this lesson our teacher gave us when I was in elementary school. We had to write down instructions for him on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which seems simple enough. The thing we didn't consider was that you have to be specific. Put the peanut butter on the bread isn't very specific. Our teacher would grab it with his hand and smear it on the bread. Because he said, we didn't write down for him to get a knife. It's just a fun reminder that you have to really give detailed directions, especially when you're around folks on a deserted island. The series has a number of running gags throughout, which are quite entertaining. My favorite being Og's father, who is constantly hunting a wombat using a bow and arrow with a suction cup at the end. He doesn't want to kill the wombat, no, it's just for the sport. Sometimes he catches it, and sometimes it gets away. But sometimes at the end, they end up having tea together. What is it about something as simple as a chase that is so entertaining? Roadrunner and Coyote, Tom and Jerry, Itchy and Scratchy. That one's a little more one-sided, but you get the idea. My other favorite is the three pirates who live on a neighboring island. When the captain of the trio demands private time, he makes the other two pirates put on blindfolds, and he goes into another room and talks to a pink bunny hand puppet that he made, who seems more like his wife than anything else. It's so bizarre, but hilarious, the back and forth they have. There's also lots of amusing lines throughout the show as well, and Mike has many of them that are almost Seinfeldian, but in a kid-friendly way. In an episode where she's explaining baseball, she describes it as the greatest game ever. Line drive and a pop fly, endless field in the midday sun. It's eating hot dogs till you're sick. It's the guy behind you spilling soda down your neck, paying $28 for a styrofoam finger you can't even give away at a garage sale. Hey, if that's not young adult Seinfeld, I don't know what is. My favorite episodes typically involve the entire village though. It's fun to see the mix-ups and culture clash that befalls everyone, and if you choose to watch the show and want to know where to begin, I'd recommend these episodes. Season 1, Episode 7, Hot Couture. Mike says she doesn't like her clothes anymore since all her clothes are the exact same. Everyone offers her fashion advice, and she decides to put on a fashion show so she can see their visions and decide what she's going to wear going forward. The only rule is no grass, since everyone already wears grass skirts. People come wearing different things, and it's funny to see how their attempts all go awry. Like Og's father, who's trying to get snakeskin, ends up being eaten by a snake, and then shows up wearing live snakes. Or the old man who's dressed in seaweed with crabs and dead things in it surrounded by flies. The ending is great as well, so I won't spoil that one for you. Season 2, Episode 16, Hot Dog. Mike is burnt out on eating coconuts since everything on the island they eat is made of coconuts, and she's really craving a hot dog. So, Og invents one for her. I like how you can just walk in without any know-how and still invent something totally crazy, whether it's a car, or a submarine, or a hot dog. It's just fantastic to watch. And it's so good that he ends up creating a little hot dog cart. And there's some funny scenes about how good they are. The dad hunter tries to lure the wombat with a hot dog, but then he gets greedy and catches himself in his own trap, and everyone on the island becomes obsessed with these hot dogs. But they're too demanding. They want toppings, they want multiple hot dogs, they want too many. So Og gets mad and sets up an automated hot dog stand that throws people off and traps them. The people of the island swear off hot dogs, but then it becomes too much to the point where Mike actually starts hallucinating hot dogs everywhere. They even start a support group for missing their hot dogs. At the end, they storm the hot dog stand, and turns out Og made the hot dogs out of coconuts. So Mike is officially over hot dogs. The third episode I'll recommend is also the sweetest. The Big Game, Season 2, Episode 20. The Islanders celebrate a holiday of theirs by playing croquet on elephants. Mike gets stuck with an elephant that's sad that he keeps losing every single year. So she spends the episode trying to make him feel better, believing in himself that he can do it. She tells him he doesn't have to be good, he just has to exude confidence and walk with swagger. And I have to say, it's my favorite visual of the entire series, watching the elephant walk with swagger. It's so funny. But the episode's really cute. Mike is really encouraging, and at one point the elephant gets so happy that he wags his tail. You couldn't write something like this. Unless you were one of the writers who wrote it, then you can, and I know it because I saw it. But it is just a joy to watch, and it's a really fun, adorable ending. I recommend that one the most. My one criticism of the show is that it never formally introduces the characters. Don't get me wrong, we get Mike, Lou, and Og's names said, but we don't get the names of other characters, at least clearly from what I could tell. Their names are given, well, I'd say more mentioned as the series progresses. Og's dad's name is Alfred, but I found that out almost halfway through Season 1 or the beginning of Season 2. I never found out the wife's name, and I don't know if the old man has a name or not. I know they call him Old Man, but it was never made clear if he has his own name. The only peripheral character whose name I knew for sure was Lancelot, Lou's pet turtle who she torments. It's just strange going through episodes of a show where I can't name the characters not because I forgot, but because they weren't given to me. It's not a major problem, but I was surprised at how much it bothered me not to be able to name some of the characters I was watching. And there is one episode where kids from across the island go to school together with Mike, Lou, and Og, and it's a lot of loud banging and screaming. I would say skip that one. Mike, Lou, and Og is a fascinating case in a show that didn't seem to fit alongside the other cartoons that were on the air at the time. It was so radically different in that it wasn't big and bombastic. It was as sleepy as the island the cartoon took place on. The show most closely reminds me of Rugrats. Whereas the Rugrats focused on the difference between seeing the world through the eyes of a child, Mike, Lou, and Og gave us the lens of an outsider, where at the end of the day, everybody ends up fitting in. It's a feel-good show that exudes positivity, and if you're wanting to watch an easygoing cartoon, kick your feet up and take yourself to a proverbial cartoon island where nobody goes.